Have you ever felt that there's something more to this reality than what your physical eyes can see? That deep within you lies a dormant power, a divine connection that society has conditioned you to ignore. You're not alone in this feeling. For thousands of years, spiritual seekers have recognized that humanity possesses an extraordinary gift hidden within the very center of our minds, a biological structure that ancient traditions recognized as our connection to higher dimensions of consciousness. Today, we're going to explore the profound mystery of the pineal gland, what ancient Gnostic traditions called our divine portal, or third eye, and how activating this sacred center can transform your perception of reality and your spiritual journey in ways you may have never imagined possible. If you've been feeling spiritually disconnected, as if something essential is missing from your life, despite following conventional religious teachings, what I'm about to share might be the missing piece you've been searching for all along. The pineal gland, though physically tiny, approximately the size of a grain of rice nestled deep within the brain, has held immense spiritual significance across numerous traditions throughout human history. In the esoteric Christian and Gnostic traditions, this small gland was understood not merely as another biological component, but as the sacred seat of the soul, the physical manifestation of our divine connection. The ancient Gnostics, whose teachings were largely suppressed by orthodox religious institutions, recognized this gland as the biological counterpart to what they called the divine spark within each human being. This divine spark, according to Gnostic teachings, is our direct connection to the true divine source, the pleroma, or divine fullness that exists beyond the material world, created by the demiurge. The pineal gland serves as the bridge between our physical existence and our higher spiritual nature. What makes this understanding so revolutionary and relevant to our modern spiritual crisis is that it places the divine connection not in external institutions or dogmas, but within our very biological structure, suggesting that the capacity for direct divine communion is our birthright as human beings. This understanding radically transforms our relationship with spirituality, moving us from seeking external validation and connection to recognizing that we are, by our very nature, already connected to the divine source. The pineal gland's activation, therefore, is not about creating something new, but awakening what has always been present within us, a connection that many modern institutions and systems of thought have conditioned us to forget or ignore. I'd like to pause here for a moment and connect directly with you, the viewer. I know that many of you watching right now have felt that something essential is missing from conventional religious teachings, that there's a deeper truth waiting to be discovered. Perhaps you've experienced moments of transcendence, brief glimpses beyond the veil of ordinary reality that left you wondering about your true spiritual potential. I want you to know that these experiences are not random or meaningless, but glimpses of your authentic spiritual nature trying to break through the conditioning that limits your consciousness. I'd love to hear about your experiences with spiritual awakening or moments where you felt connected to something greater than yourself. Please share in the comments below with the phrase, "My divine spark awakened when," and describe a moment when you felt truly connected to something beyond ordinary reality. Your sharing not only helps you articulate your own spiritual journey, but creates a community of seekers supporting each other in this sacred work of remembrance. Each comment becomes a light, helping others find their way on this path of awakening. To truly understand the profound significance of the pineal gland in esoteric Christianity and Gnostic thought, we must turn to the ancient texts that have preserved these teachings despite centuries of suppression. In the Gnostic text known as the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus speaks of a profound truth that relates directly to our understanding of the pineal gland. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever knows himself shall find it. This teaching points to the internal nature of divine connection, challenging the externalized view of spirituality that became dominant in later Christian thought. Similarly, in the Secret Book of John, one of the most significant texts discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945, we find descriptions of the divine light that resides within human beings, trapped within material existence, but capable of awakening through gnosis, or direct spiritual knowledge. The text describes how this inner light, when activated, allows the soul to ascend beyond the corrupted material world created by the demiurge and return to its true home in the divine pleroma. The Gnostic Gospel of Mary, partially preserved in several fragments, contains Mary Magdalene's teachings about the soul's journey and the inner vision required to perceive spiritual truth, a clear reference to the activation of what we now understand as the pineal function. Perhaps most explicitly, the Gospel of Philip speaks of the bridal chamber, a metaphor for the sacred inner space where the divided aspects of human consciousness are reunited, a concept that correlates beautifully with modern understandings of the pineal gland as the mediator between hemispheres of the brain and between material and spiritual awareness. These ancient texts, suppressed for centuries because they emphasized direct spiritual experience over institutional authority, provide a foundation for understanding the pineal gland as not merely a physical organ, but as the biological seat of our divine potential. At the core of Gnostic understanding of the pineal gland is the recognition that this small organ serves as a receiver and transmitter of divine light, capable of perceiving realities beyond the limitations of our physical senses. Modern science has confirmed that the pineal gland contains photoreceptors similar to those found in our retinas, literally making it a third eye capable of detecting light. But the Gnostic understanding goes far deeper than this biological fact. In Gnostic cosmology, our material reality is not the true reality, but rather a limited and sometimes distorted reflection of higher dimensions of existence. The true divine reality, the pleroma, exists beyond the limitations of matter, time, and space. The archons, which can be understood as both cosmic forces and aspects of our own conditioned consciousness, serve to keep us trapped in limited awareness, attached to material concerns, and blind to our divine nature. The pineal gland, when awakened from its dormant state, allows us to perceive beyond these limitations and access direct knowledge of divine reality. This is the true meaning of gnosis, not intellectual knowledge, but experiential knowing that transcends the boundaries of ordinary consciousness. The divine light that the activated pineal gland perceives is not merely metaphorical, but a subtle energy that permeates all of creation while remaining invisible to our ordinary senses. This understanding reveals why so many spiritual traditions across cultures have emphasized practices for awakening this center. It is quite literally our biological connection to divine consciousness. When functioning optimally, the pineal gland produces several important compounds, including melatonin, which regulates our sleep cycles, and more significantly, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, often called the spirit molecule because of its profound effects on consciousness. Modern research has suggested that DMT may be released in significant quantities during profound spiritual experiences, near-death experiences, and deep meditation states, providing a biological basis for the mystical states described in Gnostic texts. The calcification of the pineal gland through exposure to certain environmental factors, particularly fluoride, heavy metals, and electromagnetic pollution, may explain why direct spiritual perception has become increasingly rare in modern times, as these substances literally create a physical barrier to the gland's optimal functioning. This understanding brings together ancient spiritual wisdom and modern biological research, suggesting that our capacity for divine perception is not merely symbolic, but has a physical basis that can be either impaired or enhanced, depending on how we live and what practices we engage in. The true power of understanding the pineal gland as our divine connection lies not in theoretical knowledge, but in the practical application of this wisdom in our daily lives. The Gnostic tradition offers several practices for activating and purifying the pineal gland, many of which have been preserved in various esoteric schools and can be adapted for contemporary spiritual seekers. One of the most fundamental practices is meditation focused on the center of the head, where the pineal gland is located. By bringing conscious attention to this area regularly, we begin to awaken its dormant potential and increase energy flow to this sacred center. This practice can be enhanced by visualizing brilliant white or violet light, filling and purifying the pineal area, dissolving any calcification or blockages that may have accumulated. Another powerful practice is the regulation of light exposure in harmony with natural cycles. The pineal gland is highly responsive to light, producing melatonin in darkness and reducing production in light. Our modern lifestyle of artificial lighting and digital screen exposure disrupts this natural rhythm, potentially impairing the gland's function. By aligning more closely with natural light cycles, spending time in darkness for meditation, and reducing blue light exposure, especially before sleep, we can help restore the pineal gland's natural functioning. Dietary practices are equally important for pineal activation. Certain foods naturally support pineal health, including those rich in tryptophan, the precursor to both serotonin and melatonin, such as nuts, seeds, and certain fruits. Conversely, avoiding substances known to calcify the pineal gland, such as fluoridated water, excessive calcium consumption without balancing magnesium, and processed foods containing harmful additives, can help prevent further impairment of this sacred organ. Sound has been used in many traditions to activate the pineal gland and other energy centers. Specific tones, particularly those associated with the note A, 432 Hz, and the traditional OM sound, are believed to resonate with and stimulate the pineal gland. Regular use of these sound frequencies during meditation can enhance the awakening process. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, cultivating a regular practice of inner stillness and presence creates the conditions for pineal activation. The constant mental chatter and external stimulation of modern life keep our awareness trapped in lower centers of consciousness. By developing the capacity to quiet the mind and rest in pure awareness, we naturally begin to access the higher perceptual abilities associated with the awakened pineal function. These practices, while simple, require consistency and dedication. The awakening of our divine perception is not an instant transformation, but a gradual process of purification and expansion of consciousness that unfolds as we commit to this sacred inner work. As we begin to awaken the divine potential of our pineal gland through these practices, profound changes naturally unfold in our experience of reality and our spiritual perception. Many who engage seriously with this work report an increased sensitivity to subtle energies and a growing awareness of dimensions of reality beyond the material. This often begins with enhanced intuition, a clearer sense of guidance in daily life, and sometimes experiences of synchronicity that seem to confirm the interconnected nature of all things. As the activation deepens, many experience visual phenomena during meditation, including geometric patterns of light, visions of symbolic imagery, or sometimes direct perception of spiritual beings or guides. These experiences should not be sought for their own sake or treated as entertainment, but rather understood as aspects of an expanding consciousness, gradually becoming aware of realities that have always existed beyond our ordinary perception. Perhaps the most significant change is a growing sense of connection to all life and a natural compassion that arises from perceiving the divine spark in all beings. This represents the true spiritual fulfillment of pineal activation, not the acquisition of psychic powers or extraordinary experiences, but the awakening of divine love and wisdom that transforms how we live in the world. Many also report a diminishing fear of death, as the pineal activation brings experiences that confirm the continuity of consciousness beyond physical existence. This aligns perfectly with the Gnostic understanding that our true essence is not material, but spiritual, not subject to decay or destruction, but eternal in nature. With continued practice, there often comes a profound shift in identity, from exclusive identification with the physical body and personality to recognition of oneself as a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. This represents the true homecoming that all spiritual traditions point toward, the recognition of our divine nature that has been obscured by conditioning and forgetting. It's important to note that this awakening process is not always smooth or easy. As the pineal activation brings higher awareness, it often also illuminates aspects of ourselves that need healing or integration. Old emotional wounds, limiting beliefs, or attachments may surface to be addressed as part of the purification process. This should be welcomed rather than resisted, as each healing represents another veil lifted from our true perception. The implications of pineal activation extend far beyond individual spiritual growth, touching on the very nature of our collective human experience and potential evolutionary trajectory. From a Gnostic perspective, humanity currently exists in what might be called a state of spiritual amnesia, largely disconnected from our true nature and purpose. This disconnection manifests in myriad social and environmental crises as we continue to live and organize our societies based on materialism, fear, and separation, rather than spiritual awareness, love, and interconnection. The awakening of the pineal function in a growing number of individuals represents a crucial aspect of our collective awakening, a shift in consciousness that many ancient traditions have prophesied for our time. As more people experience direct spiritual perception through pineal activation, our collective understanding of reality itself begins to transform, expanding beyond the limited materialist paradigm that has dominated modern thought. This expansion of consciousness naturally leads to more compassionate and sustainable ways of living and relating to one another and to the earth itself, as we recognize the divine spark in all beings and the sacred nature of all life. The Gnostic traditions have always maintained that humanity's purpose is not merely to survive in the material realm, but to bring divine consciousness into manifestation through our embodied awareness, to serve as bridges between heaven and earth. The activation of the pineal gland is a biological key to fulfilling this purpose, allowing us to perceive and embody higher dimensional awareness while remaining grounded in physical existence. In this sense, the work of pineal activation is not merely a personal spiritual practice, but a service to the collective evolution of consciousness, each awakened individual, becoming a point of light in what has often been a world of spiritual darkness, a living example of our true potential as divine beings having a human experience. This understanding places our individual spiritual work in a larger context of meaning and purpose, connecting our personal journey of awakening to the greater unfolding of human and planetary evolution. Throughout history, numerous spiritual teachers and mystics have alluded to the extraordinary capabilities of the activated pineal gland, though often using symbolic or veiled language to protect this sacred knowledge. In esoteric Christian traditions, the halo depicted around the heads of saints and enlightened beings can be understood as a representation of the light emanating from a fully activated pineal center. The ancient Egyptian Eye of Horus symbol bears a remarkable resemblance to a cross-section of the human brain, with the pineal gland represented at its center. In Hindu traditions, the bindi worn on the forehead marks the location of the third eye chakra, which corresponds energetically to the pineal gland. The Buddha is often depicted with a protuberance on the crown of his head, the Ushnisha, symbolizing his expanded consciousness and spiritual awakening, again connected to the activated pineal function. Even in Western alchemical traditions, which were often veiled expressions of inner spiritual work, we find references to the philosopher's stone and transmutation of lead into gold as metaphors for the transformation of consciousness through the awakening of this divine center within. The consistency of these symbolic representations across diverse cultures and time periods speaks to a universal recognition of this spiritual potential within human biology. What makes our current era unique is the convergence of this ancient wisdom with modern scientific understanding, allowing us to comprehend both the spiritual significance and the biological mechanisms of pineal function. This integration of ancient wisdom and modern knowledge creates unprecedented possibilities for conscious evolution, as we can now approach this sacred work with both the reverence of traditional spiritual paths and the clarity of contemporary science. The pineal activation represents a crucial bridge between spiritual and scientific paradigms, potentially healing the artificial separation between these domains of knowledge that has characterized much of modern Western culture. As we draw our exploration of the pineal gland to a close, let us remember that the awakening of this divine portal within us is not separate from the greater purpose of our existence, but is in fact central to fulfilling our spiritual potential as human beings. The Gnostic tradition teaches that we are divine beings who have forgotten our true nature. spiritual consciousness temporarily housed in physical form for the purpose of bringing divine awareness into the material realm. The activation of the pineal gland is a crucial aspect of remembering our divine identity and purpose. As this remembrance deepens, we naturally begin to embody more light, more wisdom, and more love in our daily lives. We become living bridges between heaven and earth, between spirit and matter, fulfilling what the Gnostics understood as our sacred role in the cosmic order. This awakening is not merely for our own benefit, but serves the greater evolution of consciousness on our planet. Each person who commits to this inner work of pineal activation and spiritual awakening becomes a point of light in a world often dominated by materialism and spiritual amnesia. Your awakening influences far more than your individual life. It contributes to the collective field of human consciousness, making it easier for others to awaken as well. This is the deeper significance of the work we've explored today, a sacred responsibility and opportunity that each of us carries. As you continue on this path of awakening your divine perception through pineal activation, know that you are never truly alone. You are connected to a lineage of seekers stretching back through time who have preserved this sacred knowledge, often at great personal risk, so that it might be available in times of spiritual need. You are also connected to fellow seekers around the world who are engaged in this same work of remembrance and awakening, many of whom you may never meet physically, but with whom you share a profound spiritual bond. If the knowledge I've shared today resonates with your inner knowing, if it awakens something that feels like remembering, rather than learning something new, I invite you to join our community of seekers dedicated to reclaiming our spiritual heritage and awakening our full divine potential. Subscribe to this channel to continue exploring the deeper dimensions of Gnostic wisdom and esoteric Christianity that can transform your spiritual journey. Every video we share is designed not merely to impart information, but to serve as a catalyst for your own direct spiritual knowing. If you know others who might benefit from this knowledge, please share this video with them, as many are seeking this deeper understanding without knowing where to find it. For those who wish to go deeper, we offer additional resources through our website, including guided meditations, specifically designed for pineal activation and more detailed explorations of the Gnostic texts we touched on today. Remember that the greatest temple is not built of stone, but exists within you. And the most profound revelation comes not from external authority, but from the awakening of your own divine perception. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and your intention to awaken this divine potential within you has already set powerful forces in motion. Trust the wisdom of your own inner guidance as it leads you home to the truth of who you truly are.